My guest on this week's episode of Suds and Search is Sophie Brannon, head of SEO at Absolute Digital Media. Back in April, SearchLab's VP of Search, Greg Gifford, began slacking me from the Brighton SEO conference, telling me about a presentation he was watching from someone I hadn't heard of, Sophie Brannon. A little later, I checked Twitter and noticed a bunch of tweets about the same talk. I found a link to her slides and quickly figured out what all the buzz was about. Sophie is one of the most exciting personalities in SEO right now. She was named the Rising Agency Star of the Year in 2021 at the UK Agency Awards. She's a frequent conference presenter, a frequent guest on podcasts and webinars, and she's a must-follow on social media. I'm going to start my conversation asking Sophie about her presentation from Brighton, which is about SEO strategy. Sophie's talk is a challenge to SEOs to be more empathetic, more humble, and actually do the hard work of listening to our clients. I'm also going to ask her about a recent collaboration she did with Aleda Solis about reporting and how reporting plays into a long-term SEO strategy. Grab something cold to drink and join me for a conversation with Sophie Brannon. We'll talk all about how to develop an SEO strategy, the limitation of tools, how to prioritize tasks, and how to beat competitors. Sophie, welcome to Suds and Search. How are you today?
I'm good. I'm doing well. It's 5 p.m. over in the UK, so just winding down for the day, but no, doing good. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you for doing this at the end of the day. I'm sorry to keep you from, quality time or whatever after work, but this is my first time meeting you, and I'm super excited. I've heard a lot about you. You're, one of the things, as I was preparing for this interview, the agency you work for, Absolute Digital, and you personally have won an amazing amount of awards. So the page on the site lists all the times you've been a finalist or won, and it stretches on for pixels and pixels and pixels.
Yeah, it's been pretty amazing. It's been especially a good year or so. We went through a phase where we was being nominated for quite a few, we weren't quite winning anything, and then suddenly it all kind of came in waves. We've made big progress, particularly since going fully remote as well, since the start of the pandemic. So yeah, really exciting times.
What about for you individually? So the award was the Rising Agency Star of the Year at the UK Agency Awards, I think, if I remember right.
Yeah, that's right.
Individually, this has got to be really exciting. I didn't never won any individual awards in this thing. So, what's it been like?
Oh, it was amazing. It was completely unexpected. I wasn't expected to be put up for the award or anything like that. My whole career has been at Absolute. So I started as a copywriter, moved across into SEO kind of 4 or 5 years ago now. Now head up the department and looking for my next step into client services over the next few months as well. So yeah, it's been incredible, and I've got an amazing team behind me as well, really supporting me. They've pushed me to do talks and got me on stage. I was on main stage at Brighton SEO in April, which is where I met Greg actually. So yeah, amazing times, really fun, but again, couldn't do it without the team.
Yeah, and you teased it. So I heard about you from SearchLab's Vice President of Search, Greg Gifford, who was like, you got to have Sophie on to Suds and Search because her talk is awesome. I've since gone and watched the talk, from the online Brighton SEO course or whatever. And then there was a bunch of Twitter messages from the SEO community about you at Brighton SEO. So this was quite a presentation. I wanted to talk about, one of my favorite topics with you today, which is the SEO strategy. So the talk, if I don't want to, tell me if I've said anything wrong here, but the presentation starts off with a pretty straightforward premise. You don't like crappy SEO strategies. They piss you off.
They piss me off.
before we can solve a problem, we need to understand the problem. What are some common mistakes that you see with SEO strategy?
So for me, I think the biggest mistake is people thinking SEO strategy starts with the website. And it really doesn't. There's so many more steps to an SEO strategy before you even look at a technical audit or a content audit or anything like that. I mean, there's things like looking at client objectives. What are they actually trying to achieve out of this? Is SEO the right strategy for them? Because again, especially kind of agency side, I know so many agencies that will push SEO onto clients when it's not necessarily the right thing. So really being able to identify that. And just generally understanding the market, understanding the competitors, understanding where the website has come from and where you want to get it to. And that's pretty much the foundation of your strategy. But before you even look at the website, you have to answer all of those questions first of all. And I think there's something that a lot of people tend to forget. And they tend to just bypass it and will just go headfirst into a technical audit before asking those questions.
Yeah. It's interesting. It's like it's such a technical field. People who are in are very logical, but you're sort of pointing. It seems like in certain parts of the speech to a human problem that people aren't. We're not listening to the people who are paying us. So there's an example of a company. They're in the pet services or pet care industry where they're like they have an e-commerce store. So the logical thing is let's go drive a bunch of sales to the e-commerce store. Well, that wasn't their intention at all. They were actually looking for branding without sort of a human conversation or that kind of humility to listen to the person who's paying for you. You might miss. I mean, I don't want to mischaracterize, but empathy, listening, are these the fundamental components to a successful SEO campaign or a successful SEO strategy?
I really do think so. And I think, again, it's about that understanding and it's about that communication. And that can be whether you're working agency side, even in-house as well, because, again, understanding what the stakeholders are after. It's so easy to get carried away with an SEO strategy. And as SEOs, we understand everything. We're like, great, let's go and deal with this technical audit and let's talk about canonical tags until the CEO of this company is like, right, what the hell are you talking about? Like, I have no idea. And it's something I covered also in a reporting chat and that I did with a lady on Twitter Spaces like a few weeks ago now. Very similar thing in regards to reporting, but just bringing it back to strategy. If you don't ask those questions and you don't understand what people are trying to get from the whole SEO campaign, like you could just be running off with it and you're going to cause more problems for yourself in the long run. Like you could have a great SEO strategy. It could be performing really well in your eyes, but the client, the stakeholders could just be like, look, what the hell have you done? You've ruined my website. Like I didn't want all of this content. I didn't want to go after all of this e-com business because now we've pissed off our retailers or we've upset someone else. There's all of these other things you need to understand first before you even get to the website.
Yeah, it's like it's. I think it would surprise people how often that sort of thing happens. Like you're going in one direction and the client's hoping you're going in a totally different direction because there's just a communication issue. It's not a skills issue necessarily. It's just you didn't have the conversation that needed to be had. So
yeah, exactly. And I find that's actually one of the common reasons why clients tend to leave, whether that's agencies or like part ways with their freelancers or even cause friction in-house. It's that communication aspect. It's people not understanding what we're doing. We don't really understand what they want. No one can connect the dots. And the strategy's got to cover all of those different things because otherwise you're just kind of chasing your own tail.
Yeah, exactly. And it's alignment. I wanted to get some sense of how you could get aligned better. One of the things that you mentioned in your talk is the role of competitors. So, one thing you could do is just look at your competitors, copy their link strategies, copy their on-page strategies, but you would have a more nuanced piece of advice to look for gaps. Help unpack that for me if you could. What do you think is the right way to view competitors within a broader SEO strategy?
Definitely. So this again is, I think, a common mistake a lot of people will make with SEO strategies, just going, okay, I want to rank for all of these keywords. These competitors are ranking for these keywords. We're going to do exactly the same thing. And it's just not going to work because your website's going to be completely different. Like every single website on the internet's at a completely different stage of infancy. They've had different types of work done on it. It could load at different speeds. It could have different technical issues. It could be built on a different CMS. It can have different types of content. They could have done PR in the past. They might not have ever done PR before. There's all of these different things you need to think about. So it's more where you are in comparison to your competitors and how we can reach those different places, but not just copying that, actually identifying what's missing. So that could be a backlink gap analysis. So seeing what kind of backlinks those competitors are gaining. Can we be doing something similar? But is it actually relevant to what we're trying to achieve? And same with content. Right. I've seen so many content strategies where they've just gone, okay, this competitor has a kind of similar service offering, like we're in the same space, we're looking after the same people, let's just do the same blogs and the same guides and the same kind of copy that they're doing on their website. But you're going to have so many different USPs. You're going to be trying to target potentially a more niche target audience. And it's really about refining that. So identifying where those competitors are, but also seeing what else you could be doing that is different and what's going to set you apart from those competitors and capture a bit more of the market space than maybe what you are already.
All right, I like this. So far we've covered the client in that conversation that has happened. We've talked about the competitors and what sort of prism to view them through. The next part about this is the tools, right? The tools to do the job. I think your talk is a reminder about the limitation of tools. So I love this insight. And I work with a lot of people who are kind of just starting their career in SEO. Maybe this is their second or third job. As the tools have gotten better, the emphasis for out-of-the-box thinking and out-of-the-box strategy in particular, I don't know, it's less in vogue, I guess, is my inarticulate way of saying it. So the tools say these things. It's like the tools say these things are wrong, so that's what I'll do.
Yeah.
So one thing that's kind of lazy, for another that's not really a strategy, what's the right way of looking at tools within a broader SEO strategy?
I think combining everything. So I use a whole suite of tools. I'll use SEMrush, I'll use Ahrefs like very regularly. I've used Majestic in the past, Cognitive SEO, just SE ranking, like so many of these different tools. And you'll notice across all of them that there's certain things that are going to be different because all of these tools, again, they're competing in the same space. They're trying to get people to go to their tool rather than another one, so they're going to be trying to do something a bit different. So that's cool. Like, we need to make sure that we're just analysing all of these different things. But what people tend to forget to do is actually check Google. Like, what you're trying to achieve, or any search engine, it could be Bing, it could be DuckDuckGo, whatever you're trying to rank on. See what's actually ranking, what Google's showing up, how Google's showing it up. There's all these different SERP features now, all of this different kind of structured data that we need to really be taking into consideration. We can't just go, right, SEMrush has said we need to be doing X, Y, and Z things to make this SEO strategy work, because that's fine, but what about all of these thousands of other things that are over here as well? So I'm a big fan of just checking things manually. And it might not be the best in terms of like time efficiency, so to speak, but there's so many things you're going to potentially miss out on if you just rely on tools. So for example, looking at user experience, huge fan of heat mapping software. I love Hotjar. I've used 100 different types of heat mapping and different UX tools in the past, and Crazy Egg, I think, is another one I've used in the past. But you're a user yourself, and you've got team members that are also users. Get them to just manually go through your site, go through competitors' sites, and they're going to find the problems probably a bit better than what the heat maps are going to show you. And that could be broken pages, that could be just things aren't working when you click on them quick enough. You don't need to always run it through a tool to identify that. Like, a tool could say everything's working fine, but there's so many different devices now. We need to be cross-checking all of these things on a bit more of a manual basis. So definitely don't move away from tools. Like, I think they're completely invaluable, but also making sure that we're checking things too, because there's so many more things that your own personal like eyes and clicks and things like that can actually show you.
Yeah, and here's something that I think tools struggle with. They try to do it, and so it's not like there's nothing out there like this, but where a human being can really do well is with prioritization. So like prioritizing what's the most urgent and important thing I have to do to move the needle.
Exactly.
I think it is a lot more of a human exercise. So that's born out of experience. That's born out of understanding. Having gone through some successful SEO campaigns can really be helpful. Sometimes it's an exercise in triaging, like everything's on fire. What's the biggest problem?
Yeah, exactly. And also if you've got restrictions as well. So if you're working with development companies or your own in-house developers, or the CMS is super restrictive, there might be things that you actually physically can't do, or it's going to take you 6 months sitting at the end of a JIRA ticket or something like that to get through. So you need to be able to not just take what the tool's telling you, but as you say, prioritize it. And some of these tools as well will give you things that don't actually matter. So for example, toxic links. And this is a huge topic, so it's a bit of a touchy one as well, because some people will say it's a thing, some people won't. Google's come out, or John Mueller's come out on Twitter and said that toxic links is just something that tools are telling you is bad. It's probably worth investigating them. Google's pretty clever. Its AI is probably going to be able to identify what is spam and actually just ignore it anyway. But these are all the different types of things that tools will throw at you to kind of throw you off almost, because that's their USP. They're like, we do toxic links. These other tools don't do it. You need to pay attention. And they'll send out all of these reports and things that you need to take into consideration. But again, just a bit of common sense sometimes.
Yeah, I love that. And that's it. Yeah, I remember this very well. So here's the last thing from the talk I wanted to ask you about, or at least, don't hold me to that. One of the last. SEO is you make a statement that SEO is often an afterthought within these businesses. So this is a tough thing for us SEOs to hear for our ego or for our,
Yeah.
we think what we do is really important. We should have a seat at the table with the CEO and be in a position to affect change and all of that stuff. But, oftentimes we're in a position where we have to react instead of being proactive. Larger organizations will launch a new website without involving the SEO, and we have to kind of fix the mess. Yeah, I think there's a couple ways you could look about this. You could complain about it, or you could say, what can we do as SEOs and as people who are in this to be better collaborators with devs, better collaborators with the marketing department, the C-suite if we're able to, so that we're not always cleaning messes.
Yeah.
How can we be better collaborators?
I think, again, it's that communication aspect and being able to really clearly identify what we're trying to achieve and explaining that to people. Because, again, we're SEOs. We spend day to day doing SEO. We're so ingrained in it that sometimes you do lose sight of that bigger picture. So, for example, a CEO is probably more interested in what they're going to get out of what they're putting in. They don't care about your audits. They don't care. They don't want a 100-page technical document that says, oh, all of these things are wrong. They're like, okay, cool, but if you fix it, like, what am I going to get back out of this? They want to see the ROI. But then if you're reporting into, say, a marketing manager who is then going to have to feed that back up the line, they want more detail, they want more insights, like what's blocking, where are the barriers, how can we improve this, how can we collaborate together? If you're dealing with developers, again, they've got their own priority lists, like it's not always about us. We need to make sure that we're going, okay, here's what we need to do, here's what you need to do, here's how we can work together in order to achieve that. And it's just showing that value piece. Because, again, we could say all of these things is going to just improve all of this traffic, but how? It's not just kind of a blanket statement. People need to understand the intricacies of what we're doing and also what they need to do in order to assist with that. And it's making other people's jobs as easy as possible. So, like, with a dev team, give them a proper brief. Don't just be like, okay, I need to fix, I don't know, CLS is too high, fix it. Well, how do I fix it? Because they don't care about that, because that's it works, it's cool, it's developed. But for SEO, we need to fix these certain things. So we just need to make sure we're communicating properly and collaborating in that manner. And just, again, showing the value in what we're doing.
I love that. It's like right before you send the email, right before you get on the Zoom call, just take a second to put yourself in that person's shoes.
Exactly.
What's going to be important to them. I like it. All right. One other thing. So it's a process. Right? So SEO is not a project or a one-time thing. This is something I find clients and prospective clients have a really hard time understanding.
Oh yeah, it's infuriating, right?
Yeah, and so it's not a project. It's like, it's ongoing. You'll hear it's like, well, we were doing SEO, we got results, then we stopped. What do you know? Well, you're not good. We're not getting a lot of leads anymore. And it's like, yeah, that's what happens. So, again, it's a challenge to us. How can we be better about having that conversation with our clients, with our prospective clients, so this concept is a little more clear?
I think it's setting those expectations from day one. I think that's typically where a lot, especially agency side, fails quite badly, because they'll typically have a sales team. And the sales teams, again, don't always understand SEO. They don't always get it. They just want to get the contract signed and payment in because, commission, great, let's do that. It's making sure it's the right fit for the business, but then having that clear expectation setting, and whether that's you bring in your SEO to have that conversation, whether that's from the whole sales process or from day one of the contract being signed, or wherever that is, having them sit down and say, look, here is everything we want to do. Here's a nice roadmap, but then there's all of this opportunity in the future. Mm-hmm. This is particularly important, again, if you've got restricted budgets, or if you've got kind of barriers in terms of dev teams or anything like that, being able to say, look, here's everything we're going to do month 1 to 3. And then from that point, we need to reassess and do this, this, and this. And this is how we're going to do it, and just prioritize that. So yeah, it's just one of those expectation setting factors. And if you don't have those conversations, and you kind of, I think the way people used to sell SEO is that within 6 months you're going to be position 1 for your main keyword, right. And that's not SEO. And back in the day, maybe it was that, and it did. I can say from my experience, starting in it 6 years ago, you could probably get a client up to position 1 for a competitive keyword, but people don't care too much about just a specific keyword ranking anymore, and they shouldn't. Like, then we've been pushing people away from that because there's so much more to SEO than that. And it's about that ongoing growth, and also about how organic and SEO can integrate with other marketing channels as well, and showing that value side of it too, because it's not just the unbranded, it's your branded, how that works with PR, how that works with your PPC, how that can even integrate with your overall content marketing strategy, even email marketing if you wanted to. Everything can tie in together. So it's just showing that value again.
Yeah, I love that. The last thing about this, you caught my interest early in the show about the reporting chat that you had with Aleda. So I definitely want to go watch that. I would be lying if I said I did, but this seems like a lot of what we're talking about has been preliminary work. Like before you start the campaign, you have a strategy. And then there's this, like, I don't know how it works at every agency, but for us, it's going to be a report created, a report call every month. And we can point to that strategy that we started to, or we could just read numbers off of a screen. And it seems like this is the real opportunity, is in that reporting call or on that report itself, to check back into the strategy, to bob and weave where necessary, and to make adjustments if there are. What advice do you have about using reporting for this sort of communication strategy and checking back in with the client?
Yeah, so for me, reporting's like the least sexy part of SEO. Like, nobody likes reports week, let's be honest. It's boring, but it's also possibly the most important thing after your initial strategy, because you're showing your client, this is what we've done, this is what it's achieved, but this is where we're going to go next. Or on the other hand, we all know SEO is not always going to be perfect. It's not always going to go right every single time. It's also showing them that sometimes the bad news, and that's something a lot of SEOs will shy away from, because no one likes to talk about bad news. Like, we don't like it. We don't want to say, oh crap, like we screwed up, like our strategy didn't work right. But there's always going to be things and times where that does happen. So it's about really making sure we say, look, here's the good news or the bad news, depending on what it is. But you would have already, hopefully, had those conversations anyway. So that could be bad news because it's a Google algorithm update. It could be, which, Google loves, and just come out the back of another broad call, as usual. Or it could be new competitors entered the market space, or competitors have really increased their organic visibility. There's so many reasons why things can change. And it's just reassessing it. It's like, here's the data, this is what it means, but this is what we're going to do about it. And making sure that you have real detailed insights and recommendations along with each of the lines of data that you're giving to a client can really just help to show them through that journey, because it has to be a journey for them, because it's not, again, they're not in it every day. They don't always understand what changing this canonical tag on this particular page is, what kind of impact that's going to have. These things need to be explained. And your report should really be able to feed back into that. And like you say, it may need a whole strategy realignment, because we've achieved something out of this. It could be a content strategy. How can we push that even further? And that's something I really push within my team as well. It's that description. It's the, here's what we've got, here's what we've achieved, what's next? How are we going to get to that next stage? And that goes back to what you were saying about clients who think that, SEO is a 6-month or a one-time project. It's about really making it clear that it's like, this is the next step, this is how we get to your next objective, your next KPI, and tying it back into those initial conversations that you have before you start the strategy. These are what you wanted to achieve, here's your key objectives, we've smashed it, but this is what we want to do with it next. Or, we've not quite hit it, but this is how we're going to realign the strategy to make sure we do by the next time, or how we can then just improve on that further. So it's just tying everything together with that reporting process and just building upon that monthly.
Oh, wonderful. Well, listen, Sophie, I'm going to wrap up, but I understand now why everybody's been talking about you, and it's really been a pleasure having you on the show. If people want to learn more about you or your agency, what's the best way to reach out to you? What's your favorite social media? Those sorts of things.
Probably Twitter for me. So just at Sophie Brannon, you can find me on there, and same as at Absolute D Media if you want to look at Absolute Digital at all. But yeah, definitely reach out. More than happy to chat about strategy, reporting, pretty much anything SEO. But thank you so much for having me as well. It's been amazing. Really good fun.
All right, awesome. Well, for everybody watching, we'll be back next week with another episode of Suds and Search. For now, I'm going to sign off. Sophie, I'll give you a virtual cheers. Thanks again for coming on. And we'll see everybody else next week.